Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our friendly Natter for parent-friendly schools. You've got a different two faces this morning. Well, it's morning here now. I don't know when you're watching it. So I'm back, Anna. Hi. And instead of Rachel, we've got Kaylin, who I think you've met before. You've done one before, haven't you, Kaylin?
I have. Caitlin
Yeah,
Carlo, head of schools at Parentkind.
yeah. So Kaylin is here with me to chat about one of our initiatives. And Harvey is also here to chat about one of our initiatives.
Cheers.
Um, we are going to focus today's Friendly Natter on Initiative 1.3. So it's under our Driver 1, which is all about ethos and behaviours. And 1.3 is about fostering the school culture. So we want to talk a little bit about ideas around how we create a supportive, nurturing culture in our school, not just for our pupils, but for our parents, and how we can encourage parents to be enjoying the school environment, to understand the school environment as a friendly and safe space to be, and somewhere where they want to contribute to what's going on. So, Kaylin,
Yes,
any thoughts?
I do. I've got lots of thoughts on this. So,
Okay,
we
good.
work with hundreds of schools, and it gives us this really interesting sort of perception across the market from a real helicopter view. And I find the big difference in schools that have fostered a culture of parent participation and schools that haven't always comes down to one thing, which is actually language. It's
Mm.
not always leadership, it's not always modeling the behaviors, it's not always the policies, it's not even sometimes the kind of leaders' value set. Often it can be about language. And for me, it's around that's where culture kind of exposes itself somewhat. Is it parental engagement, which is where the school is doing something to the parent community, or is it parent participation, where they are doing something with the parent community? Are we
Absolutely.
informing parents, or are we involving parents? Like, it's
Mm.
loads of those little micro moments. And I think, often our language just flows out of us. But I think for when we come in and work with the school, we are hyper aware of picking up on that. So top tip number one already for schools is tune into the language. How does your culture talk about parents?
And two
Because
parents.
well, indeed,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because often it is, keep them at arm's length, and they are impossible to live with, but really hard to succeed without. How do we make sure we can balance that? But I find culture starts in those moments of that neuro-linguistic programming of how do you speak about and, as you correctly say, to parents. What do you
Mm.
think?
Yeah, beautiful. I think you're absolutely right. As an ex-teacher, I've had the nightmare parents I've had to deal with, but I've also had the most wonderful parents I've had to deal with. And while I would like to think I've spoken to both the same, I'm probably, if I'm honest, aware that I come with or I approach a parent with an expectation of how they're going to be, and that probably
Mhm.
affects how I write to them or converse with them, or possibly even my body language. We talk about a lot of our schools have beautifully a culture of being at the school gate, and I'm talking not just primary but in secondary as well. We're seeing that make a huge difference
Mm.
in order to connect with parents and create that culture of breaking down boundaries between staff and parents. And so body language, in those sort of scenarios as well, just makes such a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. We use the language of partnering with parents to be
Mm.
successful. And I think that term of partnership has to start from that like place of empathy, doesn't it? And you're right, teachers who often face the brunt of their parent communities that they're trying to manage. And we see lots of school cases where actually the leaders can be on the side of parents more often than not and actually isolate the teaching community as
Mm.
opposed to the leaders and teachers isolating the parent community. So it can be a really tricky line for leaders to walk in schools. How do you make sure actually it shouldn't be about lands at all? How do we partner together? Because that
Absolutely
parent
right.
that parent complaint is actually feedback that's going to help us be stronger, faster, smarter. How do we kind of reframe what is sometimes abject abuse from the parent community because it's gone too far? And how do we kind of help school members see they could have nipped it in the bud if only they were partnering sooner?
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot to say about um, being proactive rather than reactive. And if you're working to show parents you want to work with them, that you want to improve the relationships you have with the established community, that you want to listen to them, hear what they have to say about how to make this work better, you are starting from a really advantaged position in terms of getting them on board. Because once you're reacting to feedback, you're you're already on the back foot.
Mm,
um so being able to just take that first step, show parents that you're open to this sort of relationship rather than defensive about it,
mm.
um can be a magical tool. I mean, we've seen schools who've gone through our standard award accreditation, put the banners up, and the parents have been like, oh, okay, so this is something you're working towards, this is something you are looking at, you know improving, doing better. And it just creates that conversation, doesn't it? And allows a parent to understand they're at that standpoint, that's where the school's coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, and demonstrated as a priority, which often parents don't feel with
No.
their school communities. I say this to schools all the time, but I think from the parent perspective, they can feel micromanaged by their schools.
Mm.
It's 10 communications a week. They are all, one size fits all, broadcast directional, and usually they're demanding action from the parent community. So parents like start to disengage and disassociate because actually schools are kind of just raining down on them a lot of the time with, we
Yeah.
need you to do this, we need you to do that, we need you to do the other. And again, having that empathy in how you partner with parents can be tricky. I've got a
Mm.
second point. I've got a second point, which
Okay,
is
go.
I think fostering the school culture starts with the leader in their behaviors, not their policies. Again,
Mm.
I see a huge spectrum of head teachers and school leaders that are out there. And you are ex-teaching. I am not. I'm ex-business sector. So I look at it through a slightly different ends. And what I see is head teachers that are chief operating officers, and I see head teachers that are CEOs. And the difference to me is there are head teachers that are so bogged down with the operationalism of their
Mm.
schools. They aren't able to delegate maybe as much as they would like or as much as they should. They are taking on too much and they are on the treadmill of like making school operations happen. And that, is different for every school situation. I'm not judging that.
And it's hard.
Really
It's
hard,
tough on schools at the moment. Yeah,
really
yeah.
hard. The other end of the scale is the CEO head teacher that has maybe mastered more of those things and prioritizes time to build relationships at the school gate every day, to build relationships in the community with local groups and organizations and businesses. So when your secondary school kids go cause trouble, there's a personal connection that the head teacher has to the community that they serve. It's that head teacher that understands that if they build that early relationship with the parents when they come in, they are then gonna, own and reap the benefit of that for years afterwards. Like it's the figurehead as opposed to the operationalist. And I think that difference also produces, again,
Mm.
leading by behaviors. That school is then going to work closer with their parent community because those behaviors are being exhibited. So my challenge to head teachers out there and school leaders generally is, are you exhibiting the behaviors of being present for your parent and your wider community that you want to see in your people?
Yeah, absolutely. Breaking down those barriers makes such a big difference. Um, and we have to remember that so many parents of our young people at the moment have had their own negative experience at school. And consequently, they're dealing with their own traumas, some huge, some less so, but still impacting their relationship with their children's school. They may have
Mhm.
been to that school, they may not, but there's going to be their own emotions attached to how they interact. It's a For me, it's rooted in openness and, as you said a minute ago, empathy. But a school community working from the leadership downwards, that is open to conversing with parents honestly, about whatever they want to ask about,
Yeah.
just starts to create a landscape where parents feel safe to ask questions, to be curious about, what their child's getting up to and what that means for them, to start doing all those right things that fit into all those other drivers along the way. Um, so it's establishing that, yeah, openness is the word I keep coming back to,
Mm.
where parents feel they can ask or talk or
I
smile or
I
chat.
totally agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree. I have a adjacent thought to that, which I think complements, which is I don't think schools are vulnerable enough. So for me,
Mm,
openness is, we made a mistake. I think vulnerability is being more
yeah.
proactive in we are not perfect. And I don't think any school is trying to perpetuate themselves as perfect.
Yeah.
But in the wake of nothing, where you don't hold that, you're right, that psychological trauma from parents makes it less accessible. The
Mm,
pointy fences on the gates, the safeguarding rules when they come through them, like that's really intimidating and anxiety inducing for parents. What we could do with is ensuring that we can give that olive branch. One of my best examples is often schools will be judgmental, rightly so, that parents maybe don't extend learning into the home. They
yeah.
don't think about that from beyond the classroom. But a lot of parents
Not
don't
their job.
have the literacy or the skills to
Mm,
help with homework in any shape or form.
yeah.
It can be really intimidating for a parent to come to school and admit that they need help in something that they think they should know.
Mm,
Where I see this transformed is when leaders and teachers go, "Do you know what? I find math really tricky too. The last time I did geometric,
yeah.
algorithms was really tricky. I don't know how to do it. When your kid asks me, I have to go work it out with them." And I think that like open vulnerability of I have these strengths, I have these areas where I'm also struggling in a really proactive fashion helps bring partners in as parents because you remove a lot of those barriers that
Yeah.
sit in the silence where you're not exhibiting vulnerability.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's one of the schools we worked with at the recent DFE Rise conferences, up at Batley High. I probably spoke about them last week as well, but I love them. Um, they they've been really persistent in establishing their parent forum. So they set this up a little while back and started for several months with just like three parents. But because they've persisted, they're now up to like
Mm,
23 parents. They're an all boys school, largely Asian community. And they've recently had three dads join the forum. And for them, that's huge because it
mm,
means they're getting the male voice in with the parent feedback as well. And that persistence with it has been really important. But one of the things they celebrated as being crucial to being able to grow that group was how honest they were with the parents. It wasn't about, parents coming in asking questions or having a chat and teachers being defensive. There was
mm,
none of that. It was, okay, so this is why this is happening, or this is, that budget is limiting this, or, we have to do this because it's legally part of the curriculum, or, lots of honesty. Or, as you say, we're struggling with this at the moment. We're trying to work out how to do it better. Do you have any ideas? What do
mm,
you think the boys need from us? Um, how can we do this better? And engaging with them on that level is what has grown trust essentially between staff and parents. That is why more parents have joined, because that word spreads once you get a few in.
yeah.
Yeah, word spreads, people talk, and the parents start to understand that this trust can exist between them and the school community and the leadership. Um, and together they are building better things, for the boys because of it. They had a big discussion about RSE, relationship and sex education, because that was a real barrier for them with a lot of
Mm,
Muslim commu families in their community. That was something that was really difficult for them to, or parents were finding it difficult to understand, the necessary um, curriculum elements of that, but bringing them in and literally giving the parents a PSHE and RSE lesson. So they understood what was actually being taught to their kids and
Hmm.
why, just made all the difference, but it's that sort of, this is what we're actually doing in the classroom, vulnerability, not keeping it behind closed doors. Um, Beautiful. Yeah, but they've been so successful with it.
I love that shout out. Shout out to that awesome
Yeah.
school that are doing it right. And as you said, taking the bravery to be honest with their parent community and give a really rich example of partnering. I think a lot of
Mm.
schools would love to get a parent forum up and running, but are actually quite scared. Scared
Yeah.
that it's going to be weaponized, scared that it's going to produce more work, like scared that it's going to be a drama. Just to further add some scalable evidence to your brilliant example, 50% of parents feel they have zero say in their child's education, which is really immobilizing for the parent community to feel
Yeah.
like they've got no input into probably one of the only realms that they don't fully control for their child at any age. 70% of parents want to write curriculum with their schools. You've just given a really good example of that in action. And I find
Mm.
one of more challenging stats is 39% of parents see 4 complaints a month on WhatsApp groups
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that negativity comes in from the small masses. Typically, a resolution and remedy to everything I just said is a parent forum in exactly the way you just said it.
Yeah.
Empower even the smallest group of parents to have the decisions, and it typically attracts people who want to be involved and have that outlet. Write curriculum with them. So when the parent complaints do come in, you've almost got the armor to go, we partnered with parent community to make this
Mm.
happen. We've taken in as much as this wasn't a school decision, this was a community decision. We may not have represented everyone, but we did our best. If you want to help input on that next time, guess where
In
you
you
can come?
come.
Right over here into the
Exactly.
front door of the parent forum. Like, yeah, we love setting up parent forums as well. So if any listeners out there, if you need our help in order to get started, how you recruit, how you motivate, how you help
Mm.
parent forums get up and running, we can help you. But it is so worth it on the other side when you're willing to foster the school culture.
And exactly right. And allow the vulnerability of that fear
Mm.
about what that could turn into, for sure. It's a beautiful thing. One of our other schools, Birchall, has just set theirs up. They haven't started yet, but we did get an email from the head there saying how excited the parents are to get going with
Ah.
it. Um, and again, it's just allowing them to feel like they've got a voice. And
Mm.
they do have a voice. It doesn't mean they can control how the school operates. The school is the expert in that. But knowing they get to contribute and partner, you keep saying that word, and build that trust. You mentioned the stat of sort of the negative comments that get spread, 4 a month in
39%.
WhatsApp group. Yeah. Um, Imagine if that was a positive comment instead. That same sort of virality of emotive ripples can happen with the positive stuff too. That's what we need to be tapping into.
I agree. I'm conscious of time, but just to finish that point, I think schools often say the parent community doesn't understand. They don't understand how schools work. They don't understand curriculum. They don't understand how it needs to work. And weirdly, parent forums are a two-way street. And I think schools can misunderstand that. Actually, it's your opportunity to educate, build those champions within your parent community. So as
Absolutely
you
right.
say, they can be that shield for you when you need it, but actually spread that gossip around, oh, this is why they did that. I
Mm.
have the first-hand knowledge, and there's a little bit of status in that for the parents that get involved to kind of help be that community voice for you.
Yeah,
All worth it.
fabulous. Thank you, Kaylin. Um, we hope that's given you some ideas about fostering your school culture to aid parent participation. Let us know how it's doing. Give us some feedback. If there's anything you're doing in your school that's standing out, that's working for you, tell us under the post that this will appear on. We'd love to be able to share those successes too. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.